Okay. Chase Rowan, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you connecting with me and your willingness to come on and share your story. Do you just want to introduce yourself or do you want me to do a little quick introduction?
You can do a quick introduction. That's fine.
So, Chase Rowan, you're a former 3rd Ranger Battalion Ranger. You deployed to Iraq. You had an airborne incident, left you with a TBI. You went through a period of addiction before you found help, which you found help through psychedelics, which is a big part of what we're going to talk about today, which is pretty awesome. And right now, you're the Veteran Engagement Coordinator for Texans for Greater Mental Health. Is there anything else you want me to add to that?
I'm also the director of community engagement and advocacy for Americans for Abigail.
There you go.
So I joined them, I guess last month.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So you guys are doing a lot of really good things.
we're doing incredible things, man. So I'll dive into. So yeah, Chase Rowan. We are, like you said, former Army Ranger. Grew up in Texas, born and raised. Only time I left the state was to Oklahoma for some college and then the military. But my life started in Grapevine, Texas. I grew up. My dad was a really successful home builder. So I lived in like a gated neighborhood. It was really nice. Like me and the kids could all play outside, me and all my friends, not worried about strangers or anything. It was just really ridiculous. So life was beautiful. I played select baseball. Played ice hockey. I was really athletic. And then at 10 years old, 5th grade, my parents got divorced and everything shifted. Everything in life shifted. My mom started drinking real heavy. Um, my dad started having a lot of fun. He got a Harley Davidson. Like he was, you know, really acting out. And so that was really hard, really, really hard. A lot of my friends that I grew up with weren't really allowed to hang out with me anymore, which was kind of weird.
Hmm.
But that would happen at 10. Then at 12 years old, my sister and I have an older sister, she's 2 years older than me. We're about to move in with my dad permanently. And December 2nd, 1995, he died. He got in a motorcycle accident on his Harley in Waco. And, I'll never forget, which you'll see me dive into this later about the Ibogaine. But the way I found out was 10:15 p.m. on December 2nd, 1995. I'm just a 12-year-old boy. And my drunk mother comes and wakes me up and says, "Your dad is effing dead." And again, I'm a 12-year-old little boy and I hear that. And it was like I was destroyed. From that point on, it was 2 weeks after that, man. Some older kids gave me alcohol for the first time. So I learned how to self medicate at 12 years old. I had no guidance. My mom was doing her own thing, and so I learned how to self medicate then. And so you fast forward, I go through middle school, high school, my friends were my family. I had a large group of friends that were really I leaned on a lot. And in high school, varsity, I was in high school when Varsity Blues came out. So, we were living that, we really were. I mean, we're in Texas and we were living that life. And it was really a wild time in Texas high school football. Like, and there were times I had teachers help me with grades. It was really crazy to think about. And now as an older adult, I look back and I'm like, I can't believe we're doing stuff like this. It's not helping the kid.
Yeah.
But, so go through high school, loved high school, had an absolute blast. My mom traveled. She would just leave town a lot, and so I'd throw parties at my house all the time. So, I was kinda known as that party kid, but I was also a nice kid. Like, I wasn't mean, I was never a bully, never picked on people. So then I graduate high school and I get a little small college offer for football, to a D3 school, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna play in the NFL. And I became obsessed with I've always been crazy about like planes, like in flight. And I was like, I'm gonna go to flight school. I'm gonna go be a commercial airline pilot. And so I went to Southeastern Oklahoma State, in Durant, Oklahoma, 2001 or 2000, yeah, 2001. And started flying planes. It was awesome. And then, as 9/11 happens and they completely shut everything down. Like there was nothing going on. We couldn't fly for a good while. And it was about 8 months after that. Um, I'd been watching Shock and Awe, and I was like, "Who are these guys jumping out of planes?" And, I just became very interested in that. And I was like, "I wanna be a Navy SEAL," because I was a swimmer, grew up around lakes. I was like, "I wanna be a SEAL, I wanna swim." And I went to the recruiter. I was overweight from, like, drinking and partying, and they were
So
like,
you're
"No."
so you're still self-medicating throughout this entire time?
Yeah, just alcohol, though,
How
just
much
booze.
so started drinking at 12. How much are you drinking? Because I mean, I get that. My parents didn't get divorced, but I started drinking when I was probably 16.
Yeah.
And so it's how did you get it, and how much are you drinking to medicate yourself?
Man, I would steal my mom's vodka almost nightly or every other night, and I wouldn't drink a lot of it. I would say like a water bottle, like this much vodka, but that's going through high school. I mean, I would drink the night before games, because I was alone. Um, I was running from feelings at that time, but yeah, I
Yeah,
would drink. Heck, when I got to college, we go buy a 30 pack of, I know Oklahoma beer is way different. It's weaker, but I'd be the only one drinking. I would get my buddy with the fake ID to go get me alcohol, and I'd be the only one drinking, and then I would hide it. Like I'd buy the little, what do you call them? The vodkas, the little thin bottle, you know, the
like
little, I don't know what,
the little ones,
no,
like
the
the
bigger one,
airplane. Oh,
the
I'm not
bigger
sure.
one, but it's kind of thin. But I'd buy those, and that was my kind of prep for parties. You know what I mean? Like, so I'd go before I'd shower, and before we'd leave, I would make sure I was a little buzzed, so that when I go out, it's not like I don't look crazy, I'm not
Yeah,
taking tons of shots, but I would just go till the end, man. And I was also prescribed Adderall, which does not help. It allows you to drink a lot more. I say allows you. I mean, you can drink a lot more on Adderall. I mean, hell, it's legal speed, at
yeah.
least in my eyes. Um, so yeah, just completely stopped going to class, was just drinking every day, partying, didn't care. Then I decided I was gonna join the military, and I became committed to it. My friend played football at Texas State in South Texas, and we went and lived in New Braunfels together for like a year, and then I joined in New Braunfels, Texas. And I had a black lab, my dog Tyson, that I got when I was 18. I was obsessed with this dog. Like, he went everywhere with me. That was the only reason I almost didn't join, and that was the only reason I was crying every night before I was leaving, was I just didn't want to leave my dog. And so I'll never forget the fear I had of leaving. It's like I'm leaving this comfort, and I was drunk when I got to San Antonio, to the hotel that night, really drunk. So I woke up the next morning completely hungover, and then having to go, fly with all these new recruits and go, yeah, the whole spiel, and then get to Fort Benning and get destroyed. And the crazy thing is, the reason I turned on in basic training, like, it was day 2, and we're getting smoked, push ups and all that stuff. And the drill sergeant's looking around, and um, he goes, "Come on, fat ass." And I'm like, I come looking at the ground. I'm kind of laughing. I'm like, who's he talking to? And then he goes, "I'm talking to you." And I was like, oh. And I never had been told, like, called that or been overweight. So, man, there was some fire that turned on in me. And then now I realize also, that was the first time I was sober,
Mm.
actually sober for a long period. So that was my best self and full self in basic training. So I was the platoon leader. I was just kicking butt at everything. Then I'm one of 2 guys to get offered a Ranger contract.
I want to back
So,
up real quick because I
yeah.
interrupted you to ask about the alcohol when you were younger. But how did you go from wanting to be a Navy SEAL to joining the Army?
So, because when the recruiters told me I would have to ride on a ship for like a year or 2 before I could go to get a shot at buds. Um, no, I was like, no. And then I read Black Hawk Down, and then the movie came out, and I was like, this is it. Because again, I missed the football, the locker room, the camaraderie, and I just knew I wanted to do something that was not just average, So then I became crazy about Army Rangers, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I went to the recruiter, and they were like, no, you can't we don't have any Ranger contracts. And I was like, okay, I got a decision to make. I'm either gonna go join, or I'm gonna go to a different branch. So the only option was first ID in Germany, which is a tank division. So that was my first duty station. And it was first ID in Germany. I was really depressed about it and upset about it, but then I changed it and was like, this would be good. I'm gonna turn this into something more. In my bed, my bunk in basic training, I had a book above my bunk, to be a US Army Ranger. It was like kind of a big book, and it had some pictures in it, but it was up on there. And every day I looked at that, and I told myself, I was like, I'm going to somehow find a way to this, and I'll be damned if we still had like 6 weeks left. And I was one of 2 guys, me and this kid, Lewis, were offered Ranger contracts, and I took it, and then I was off to the races and went through RIP, which is a 4-week process, Ranger Indoctrination Program. They now call it RASP. But it's physical. It's complete physical, just pain and, confusion. I mean, I'll give one example. There's something called Coal Range where you're outside for like 3 days. And They're just smoking you. You're running like 300 yards to the wood line and having to run back, and then you're doing squats with your arms around each other, all that stuff. And if you quit, which a lot of people quit, um, you got to go sit by the fire and eat pizza, you know? And I'll never forget a guy next to me was crying like, "Man, I can't do this." And I was like, "The pain is temporary, dude. It's gonna end soon." He quits, drops out, which makes it easier for me now for a second, and walks to the fire and they say, rest or whatever, at ease, you know? And we stop and it was like, he looked back in the devastation in his eyes. I was like, I can't imagine being that dude, you
Yeah.
know, that he just quit and it was almost over. But that taught me a lesson. Like pain really is temporary, you know, and just fight through it if it's something you want bad enough. And I was committed to this. So, I get through RIP. Um, I thrived at everything I did in there. I'm very competitive as well. So I get out of RIP, and then I go to 3rd Ranger Battalion, and immediately this is funny. I'm on my way, to the airport to go back to Georgia so I can go to Ranger Battalion, and I talked to a buddy of mine that's already in battalion, and I go, "How is it, man? How is it?" You know, with the tambourine and everything, and he goes, "It is so much worse than RIP," and I was like, "What?" Man, this broke me. I was devastated right at that moment, and, he explained it, you know, and it's like the hazing, you know, you gotta earn your respect, so then I got to battalion, and I was a bigger guy, and I didn't really put up with crap, and it was day 1 they sent someone at me, and I beat the living crap out of him, and it was like, so I earned some respect there. I didn't get messed with as bad, but it was still, you know, it's you gotta earn your stripes, and so
Yeah.
you get in there, and then I got to see that later on, so go through battalion, learning the way of the world, the way of the Rangers, and the thing I loved almost the most, man, was the way we carried ourselves and the way he made you dress and, like, how important that was in battalion, like, it was really important. You don't look like crap when you walk out of these gates, you know, and I liked that, I like that, um, yeah, it's like that aura of, like, "Oh, I'm an Army Ranger," you know, it made me feel cool. So deploy in 2005 to Northern Iraq, Mosul. I was very excited about this, and I honestly thought I was not gonna come back from this. Because by the way, I'm still drinking. I'm closet drinking while I'm in battalion. So so and I say closet drinking, like a lot of the younger guys, but they would honestly drink every night almost. You know, but I wouldn't go out in the hallways with them. I was a few years older than them, and so I would just drink in my room, you know, and yeah, so I hit it like that. But then we get to Iraq, we fly over there, you go to, you know, Germany first, you get to Iraq, and mind you, the night before we left, I was drunk, like plastered. So it was my last
I
night.
got a question about that.
Yeah.
So you talked about in basic how when you got sober, it actually made you better and you were performing at a much higher level. How were you able to um, start drinking again when you're in Ranger Battalion and still perform at that high level?
Because I was able to do it for all those years in like high school and college, like I was a high functioning addict, you know? And to be honest, I wouldn't get hammered every night. Like I wasn't a blackout drunk. Um, as long as I had something and I could get an altered state, I was usually happy. Um, but yeah, you know, I don't know. I don't know because it didn't bother me. It didn't phase me. Maybe it was because basic training built up such a badass in me, you know, and got me so strong and capable. And I was still young that then I put the poison back in my body and it was going to take time for it to really start hurting me again. If that makes sense.
It
You
does.
know, so it wouldn't like I would get up in the morning, maybe be a little hungover sometimes, go on a 5 mile run, you know, and then I feel great. And I'd go have breakfast and the day was awesome. That's the common theme for a lot of our military guys. It's like,
I was going to say, I think that's the theme across like the entire military and special operations. It's like a lot of people in the civilian world just drink and then they kind of spiral, but we drink and then we thrive and then we associate the two together. And it's like the only way that I can be successful is to continue drinking. And I don't know, that's just a thought, but
it's great. Oh, it's true, man, and you know,
lots of high functioning alcoholics.
lots of them. And I look back at it now and it makes me really sad, but to think about the number of dudes that were like 18, 19, 20 years old that were lived in my building in the barracks every night, man. And it's like, good gracious, you know, like it's not I don't like that. I don't like that that's the world because dude, there were guys that didn't want to drink. Well, guess what? You didn't have a choice. It was
Yeah.
almost like if you didn't drink, then you were going to receive more hell from them. you know? And so they would force some guy, and I hated that, man. I still don't like that. But, yeah, I just never got that. It's like, it doesn't make you cooler. I guess it makes us feel cooler. I think that's what it is, you know? And, yeah, so but yeah, and then deployed to Iraq, had an awesome deployment. I mean, man, I was with, like, Billy Graham. His grandson was my XO, like, awesome guy, Ed Graham, like, so I was over there. He was a West Point grad, big, mighty man, just an awesome warrior, an awesome leader. And then, my platoon sergeant was Sergeant Van Oss, that has a road named after him now at Benning. He, went on to Delta, and I think his first deployment got shot and killed. Awesome leader. My platoon leader was Chad Fleming. He lives here in Texas. He lost a leg overseas, amputee, does a lot of public speaking. And then, Sergeant Kapacheski, he wrote a book. Oh, I can't remember the name of the book now. It's terrible. But, Joseph Kapacheski ended up taking his own life like 5 years ago. But he lost his leg, and he had like 30 surgeries to try to save the leg, and then finally amputated it. And I think he was the first, uh, SOCOM guy, I believe, to deploy with a prosthetic. So it went right back in. So it was cool. So I got to be overseas with a lot of cool guys, see exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to see war at its worst. I got that. And our deployments are usually 3 months, around 3 months. So it's a quick, and it's not a year, you know, so you could be busy. I absolutely loved, that environment, you know, and it was because I was pushing myself out. Again, I'm sober. Again, you know, this is why these basic training, I was thriving more than I ever thrived. And then overseas was the same way. I was in better shape. I was working out every day, reading. Like, I just felt great. Um, so deployment went awesome. Returned from deployment. And about 3 months later, we do a nighttime airborne jump training, where it was the whole battalion. We were taking over a runway, an airfield in South Carolina for training. And about 3 a.m., I have tons of weight on me. I jump, and my chute just doesn't fully deploy. And so when you look out, you jump out, and then you look up at the sky to see where you are. And the next thing you know, you're hitting the ground already. You know, that's how fast it is. And I slammed the runway, and my helmet, the back of it hit like right here on my head, and I had like an 8-inch gash in the back of my head. But I was knocked unconscious, dragging down the runway. They get me to the hospital, get a bunch of staples put in, and I feel like, you know, I don't. Did you play football? Have you ever had a
No, I
concussion?
didn't.
Okay, but like when you hit something, you feel good. It's like powerful, but you're dizzy, kind of. Like, I was feeling that nonstop. So
Mm.
I immediately go back to Benning. I think it was like 3 or 4 days out of the hospital. I go back to Benning, get right back in the hospital there. The army doctors put me on Percocet, you know, because they said, "Are you hurting?" And I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." And so they gave me some Percocet. When I took those, I was like, "This is it right here, buddy." You know, like, this is the way. I don't put on weight. People can't smell me. You
Yeah.
know, this is a gift. And boy, did the addict in me take advantage of it. And I was multiple times going back to the doctor saying someone stole my bag or someone took my prescription, and they'd write me another one. You know, I did that multiple times, just terrible stuff. And, you know, so I'm getting med board out of the military at this point, and for my head injury, because they said I can't, I'm desk ridden, like I can't jump anymore because of my head injury. So I start getting med board out, and I moved back to Texas, North
Did
Texas.
did they push you out, or did you want it? Because I know some guys, it's like
Uh-uh.
they fight the med board process because 'cause they're like, "No, I
No,
wanna
I
stay
didn't. I
in,"
didn't
and
fight it. And I look at my leadership and my friends, and a lot of the reason I didn't, because some of my friends weren't happy in battalion. Like, they wanted to get out of the military bad,
yeah.
you know? So when you're around that energy, and so when I get hurt and they all say, "You got your deployment and now you're getting out, you lucky man, you know? And so that kind of changed my psyche. I don't know. I was like, "Man, I am lucky. I got so much to give and do back home, and so many people I know." And then it got me excited about getting out and getting back on to the next phase, because I got to go to war. That's what I
So you
wanted.
so you didn't have any of that resentment of feeling like you didn't accomplish
Oh,
something,
no, no.
you checked all your boxes, you were good.
Except Ranger School. I didn't check Ranger School because when you get into battalion, usually about a year after you are in battalion, then they'll send you to Ranger School. I was supposed to go back after deployment, like 4 or 5 months after deployment, and I got hurt. So it was like I never got my tab, which is upsetting in a way, but then again, it's not. Like, I still got to do what I wanted to do, and I got to be around some amazing people. So, so yeah, it was really, I felt very accomplished, and I was very proud of myself. But once I was getting med boarded out, that's when my addiction got real deep because I was in my room a lot by myself. Um, and I'd take a lot of those. And then I started to learn that, okay, hold on, I'm running out of these pills too fast. Well, okay, let's take a few of the pills and drink a little. It's just a terrible combination, but that was my mindset. Like, yeah, man. So I started doing that. Would extend it out a little bit, and then I moved back to Texas, man. And I immediately have a great job working for a good friend of my dad's, a large land developer that builds neighborhoods, like residential neighborhoods. He was going to let me come in, and I was going to get right into it and start learning. And I come back, and I'm drinking every day right when I get back. And me and my girlfriend, I'm living with her for like a month. My now wife, but I'm living with her for like a month or two. And then I go to the VA, man, and I realized very quickly when I got in there because I was like, I need because my Percocet was running out, the prescription was done, and I went to the VA and I knew what I wanted, you know, but I was so disappointed to see how easy it was to get what I got, to get what I wanted. Like, I got Adderall, I got hydrocodone at first, 10 milligram, because he wrote 5 milligram first, and I said, no, I've taken those before, those aren't strong enough. 10 milligram. The next month, I was back saying, no, 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 these are not working. Oxycontin. So I go up to Oxys. Within like 6, 7 months, they were mailing me. It was 60 Oxys, 60 Adderall, and 45 Klonopin. It was like, so I had my drug dealer just was my was my government, you know?
Yeah.
So I start relying on that every day. And again, people can't tell yet. And Adderall is the reason people can't tell. Because if you're an opiate addict and you get heavy into opiates, you can really see it. You can see it in the eyes. You can just, I don't know. But Adderall completely switched that. Now my pupils weren't small.
I don't want to go down a road of bashing the VA because they do a lot of help. And I know a lot of people that work over there. But with that said, um, did they ever do like any type of workup to really see if you needed the pills or the mental health aspect or the physical? Or did they just, what do you need? And then they just write it.
That was pretty much the case. And the thing with me is like every dude that comes in there, the VA's goal is for you to have PTSD. Because if you have PTSD, they're going to mail you medications, antidepressants or anxiety meds for the next year. And they're not going to see you again until next year if you're doing therapy or whatever. But the reality is they all had traumatic brain injuries as well. Being around too many explosions, like all these things, it's concussed and that ends up rolling over into PTSD. Well, I actually had a documented TBI. So when I went to the VA, yes, they did testing. They ran scans. They did everything. And mind you, man, I didn't have any pain at that moment. I guess my ankle hurt sometimes 'cause I've broken my ankle too. But other than that, man, I wasn't that much pain. But they asked me and they saw my record and they saw the injury that I had and they saw the medication I was on before I got out. So they immediately thought, okay, he still needs this. They never asked me if you still, and because when they said, how are you on your medication? I said, good, I need more of it. I'm really struggling. That was it. And they wouldn't question it. And most of them, man, were foreign doctors. They really didn't care. And I saw that after the years that I went back to the VA, they didn't care. I could do whatever I wanted to do. And that's very sad. I could go to the doctor and I could get my Adderall prescription upped. I could get my pain prescription upped stronger. Like it was never once did I get turned away. And I am very good at convincing, but also it was kind of, I don't know, man. It's insane. Like 110 milligram hydrocodone will work for pain no matter what. I didn't need 60 milligram oxycontin,
Yeah.
you know? But so yeah, got into that. And when it was just mailed to my doorstep, I just became the first of every month, I was so excited. Like, okay, I'm waiting for it, I'm waiting for it. And then man, a few years later, my girlfriend and I are now living together. Um and she can't tell. Nobody can tell yet because of all my friends, we'd go out to bars, we'd party, we'd have fun, but nobody really knew the struggles yet. Um, then in 2010, my daughter was born and I was going to get sober, like I'm going to get sober at this. It was 3 or 4 days before she was born. Again, like I'm just cutting it real close. But man, I was withdrawing at the hospital bad and felt terrible. I left after she was born, but I left. Didn't tell my wife where I was going, and I went and got some drugs, and I came back all happy, like, "Okay, everything's fine now," and that was a real hard moment for me because I just had my daughter, and it was like I just failed her.
Yeah.
This was my moment of where I was gonna get sober, and doing it for someone else, but I failed it. So that was a big shift for me because it was like, man, you this is a big mistake. This is the biggest mistake you've made. And so I continue going on. My wife and I get married the next year. And we were already getting married, but we did it backwards, you know. And so then we got married the next year and 2011, awesome wedding. Man, I was I was on cloud nine during the wedding. You know, I had some oxymorphones and Adderall. Yes, and I don't need it. I won't detail the drugs, but I was high at my wedding. Um, you know, and
Did you because I know as you get further into your story, you actually start to have some moments that really bring to light that, hey, I got a problem.
Mhm.
But did you recognize it before that and you just fought it? Or what was your thought process?
You know, that's really crazy you ask that because I think back to it and it's like I knew I was drinking too much. I knew that I had a problem with drinking and I couldn't stop, but then I felt like the pills made me think I was drinking less so that I was okay. But I never yeah, I knew, like, when I'm running out of my prescription, like, 2 weeks or 3 weeks early, you know, that's a problem, you know, but I didn't focus on the problem. I was looking for the solution for me at that moment, which was the drugs.
Yeah.
So I didn't care. Yeah, I really didn't care. And
Do you think a lot of guys, because we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, just about how you compare yourself to other people. And like I shared my story of like, oh, I might be drinking too much. And I knew exactly how much I would drink over like a 4-day period. But then I talked to somebody else and he's like, man, I'm drinking a bottle of vodka a day. And I'm like, oh, well, then I'm not that bad. And so I always felt like maybe I have a problem,
yeah,
but then I would justify it and be like, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. And then,
that's what I would do. I would justify it. I would say, you know, "Hey, hold on, like, I got a great job, you know, everything is going well." I mean, I'm a former Army Ranger, you know what I mean? In the back of my mind, like, I can do anything.
yeah.
Um, yeah, man, but I didn't it wasn't until so fast forward, it was like 2014 or something. My daughter's now 4 years old, and I went through withdrawals for the first time. I never had gone through withdrawals at that point. Well, yeah, I had. I'd gone through with, but it was for a different medication. But this was for hydrocodone, Adderall. Like I was cutting it all out, and the way I was feeling, I felt like I just wanted to die when I was going through withdrawals. And I called the VA and I said, "How could y'all put me on these medicines?" You know, and about 24 hours later, I'm calling back saying, "Can I please get back on these medicines?" And I was already red flagged because they put on there that, you know, I don't need them anymore because I pretty much told them they're killing me. Um, so immediately, man, I go buy them on the street. I start finding them on the streets, start buying oxys. And that was a long, long run. And I did oxys for a long time. And then 2015, my son was born, Ranger. And what do you think? I'm thinking this. It was a year before he was born. I was like, this is my sober date. You know, I'm going to be sober when my son is born. Um, yeah. What do you think happened? Withdrawing again. And in the hospital, I left like 3 times. You know, my wife's, yeah, just so I just kept leaving and going and getting my fix. And my son is born, and I'm a father of two. And after that time, I was like, I'm really screwed. I got a big problem. But the second I would think that, then I would go get high, and that thought would be gone. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Like I would know, like, is that's what was my that was my routine. It was like when I start to worry or stress about what I'm not doing right, go get high, and then that'll remove that uncomfortable discomfort, you know, and numbing it. Like that's the point of these substances. So I then yeah, I get really down on myself. And I have a lot of ups and downs with my boss because my addiction starts to kind of show. I'm unreliable, you know. Yeah, it's real obvious. But he was trying to be helpful to me and, you know, give me a second chances. And it was in so after I'm off the medication, I start buying oxys on the street, oxycontin, and very expensive. And I am taking those, and again, there's no reason to go into detail, but all these years are like they seem like days almost, you know. But I spent years doing this, buying oxycontin daily. Like the amount of money I spent on this stuff was crazy. And it was 2015 after my son was born and after I'd relapsed that time. And I was so disappointed in myself. I went to get more oxys. and I only used one guy to get all my stuff from. This was the first time he didn't have any, and I was hurting so bad, and I was like, "Dude, I need something," and he handed me a piece of black tar heroin, and he said, "Put this up your nose." I put it up my nose. That was home. That's what I've been looking for, through all the like, something strong that was cheap that would last me a while. Not that I don't know, and I never injected heroin, which a lot of people don't think you can do it. Like, I would, just put it up my nose, but yeah, so now I'm a heroin addict, and still taking Adderall. I would get up in the mornings, take my Adderall for work, uh, and then, once I'd start to feel too uppy and want to come down, then I'd start my day with the heroin, the opiates. And this went on for a long, long time, to where I'm able to function, but no one is really knowing exactly what I'm doing because my friends weren't into this stuff. I had a few friends that struggled with addiction, but they weren't in as deep as I was.
Did your
So,
wife know?
at this point, yeah, I think she caught me a few times, but I made stupid excuses, like just made it up. And I know she was busy too. And I was good at hiding it. I was a good BSer, like most addicts are. And so we get to that point, and when I start heroin, it starts dropping fast, life. And that seems to be the case with a lot of veterans I speak to. It's like once we can't buy pills on the street, if that's what we're getting them, pills are so expensive. Heroin is stronger and cheaper, and it lasts longer. So what are you gonna do? Especially if you're an addict, it's like you're gonna go to that.
Yeah.
And heroin always scared me. I was like, I'll never stick a needle in my arm. But when I found out you didn't have to do that, I was like, oh. So 2015, so I'm drugging away, working. There's a lot of ups and downs through that. 2018, no, 2016. I wake up one morning and I say, I need help. I was like, I need help. I can't fix this. Now, my life was destroyed at the point financially. Like my addiction had caused a lot of hell in my life. And so I decided I need help. I ended up going to a 4-week rehab in Bandera, Texas, La Hacienda. And I go there and I think I was really trying to escape my problems. I told myself I have a problem, but I think I was trying to escape what was at home and using this kind of as a crutch I don't know. But so I get to rehab and dude, it was
Let
go ahead.
let me ask you a question because I've always been curious. Like, you recognized that you needed help and you went to rehab. A lot of people know they need help and they just refuse to ask. I talk to so many people that have a brother, a family member, they know a veteran that's struggling hard. And then you talk to that veteran, it's like, "How are you?" And he's like, "Man, I'm great." It's like, "What do you need?" "I don't need anything." How is it, from a positive? I know you still had some struggles after, but how did you take that step and to recognize you needed help, to actually ask for help compared to someone who just says, "I don't need help"? What is all that about?
It was my kids, a lot of it, but it's also you look at us military guys, what do we go through? Like, in basic and just the military life, it's like you come to an obstacle, you get around it. You have a problem, you solve it. There's a way around everything. But when there's a problem with yourself, you don't speak up about it because you'll get taken off the line or whatever it is. So you just be silent about it. And then it's like we all come back and we're here, we're embarrassed. I think that's a huge part of it. In our own homes, we can misbehave and act like fools. But when we go out in front of our boys, like when you call me, oh, I'm good, man. I'm not gonna let y'all know I'm struggling. That's the mentality. You don't want to be the guy that brings the other guys down. Does that make sense? Like I didn't want to call my buddies and be like, guys, I need help. Please help me. Because then it was like, now I'm affecting their lives. This is my mistake. And so I think too many guys, again, we're taught to deal with our pain and struggles in the military and overcome it. And then you get out and you're not kind of prepared for this world. And these doctors don't prepare you for the medication they're giving you. And so you just get locked in. And then it's like you're in such a spiral, man. You don't want anybody to know how bad you are. That's
Yeah.
another reason. So you're gonna keep it to yourself and everybody else is gonna think you're fine. And we're really good at that. Like, and I was really good at it. Because I knew I just kn yeah, I knew how to handle my drugs and alcohol, and I wasn't a guy, like I said, that I wasn't a guy nodding off or blacking out at parties, none of that stuff. I was always fun, active, I was the lively lively addict,
I
and,
I think what you say is so true. I literally had that exact conversation with my wife this morning. Just trying to understand why vets don't ask for help and why they think they can just do it all on their own. And our assessment is the same. That's why I asked you that question, because I'm curious to hear it from someone else with the experience. Is that we go through essentially an indoctrination in the military of suck it up and drive on,
Yeah.
be a team player, push through the pain. Um, I go through selection for special forces, and I get my 2 week profile. Well, I had a strained MCL. Go back to the 82nd, and I'm like, hey, my knee hurts. Like, I'm in pain. I go to sick call. They put me on another profile, and I show up. Hey, sorry, I'm on profile. And he's like, oh, well, then you can go with all the broke people over
Yeah.
there and do PT, and like started shaming me for being in pain. He's like, or you can suck it up and come go on this 5 mile run with your teammates. And it just over and over and over of push through the pain. Don't let anybody know you're broke. And then God forbid you get pulled from an exercise or a deployment, and now you're missing out on what everybody else is going through. So and then you get out and you're all alone. You don't have your team anymore. You're in isolation. I've heard you mention that a couple times, being in the isolation. I think that has a terrible effect on guys.
Terrible.
And we don't know how to ask for help because we've been told we're weak and to suck it up and to get through it.
And you'll see why all that's changing now. I believe that there's a shift happening right now that which I'll get into later. But yeah, we're waking up. Too many of us, like yourself, myself, we are incredible leaders. We're great men. We serve this country, and it's like thousands upon thousands of us get out of the military, come back, get put on drugs, on medication. We're on the gutters. None of us are ourselves. We're not those thriving leaders we were in the military, because what are we on? We're on an antidepressant that's changing our brain chemistry. We're on anxiety meds. We're on pain medicine. We're drinking. So you're not your best self, but look what's happening now, which we'll get into later. But these plant medicines are waking us up. And we are the one sleeping giant in this country that will change this country at a rapid rate, because we are all in the gutters, but we are all men and women that we're willing to put our lives on the line for this country, right? We were willing to put our lives on the line for this country. Now we get out, and here we are. We're all still here. Not all of us. A lot of us, might have took their own lives, but we're still here. And it's like, who's waking up right now? It's our country's out of control, and it's like, it's going to take us. It's going to take individuals like you and me and other people that serve this country, who love it enough to realize, dude, I still need like my service isn't over. And that's the way I feel about this now. It's like, there's so much more work to do, and the work, my focus is on everyone, but it's also the veteran community. Wake up. And I'm seeing it. I know some incredible dudes that just fell off, destroyed their lives, destroyed their family, everything. Their kids are without them. Their wives are devastated. And it's like, it's because these pills are on. And then you get them off these pills, and all of a sudden they're thriving. And it's like, it breaks my heart, man. It breaks my heart. I've lost 9 buddies to suicide since 2008. It's like, it doesn't have to happen, and we're figuring that out. And that's where, yeah. So I'm blessed so I'll keep going. Like 2016, I go to rehab. I loved it. It was a vacation. I absolutely loved it, man. I got there. I was the cool guy there, like, I'm an athlete, so I throw the foot, but it was just, I had 4 weeks of fun. Like, it was fun. I was sober. I didn't have my home stress, my financial stress. My phone was put up. It was crazy, man. And so, like, a week before I was leaving, I was like, well, I can still take Adderall. I was telling myself that. Bad mistake for the addict, So I leave rehab. Within 2 days, I was back on Adderall. And then a week later, that turned into like opiates, and I hit it for the next year. I say I hit it. My kids always knew when I was on something. They just told me that recently. But, and then 2018 comes, man, and I was like, finally, I realized I really need help. I can't do this. My wife and kids went to the in-laws for a temporary period, and I was like, I got to get help. And so I got into Warrior's Heart in Bandera, Texas. The 6-week rehab program is for veterans and first responders. I get there, dude, I'm with Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Army Rangers, firefighters. It's a big group of us. It was awesome. Like, all of us, like, it was working out together. It was like you're back in the community. We play pool volleyball. We go on runs together every day, sitting at lunch with your boys, laughing, cracking up. And then, you do like one therapy session twice a week or something, that stuff. But it was like that camaraderie. And then I started seeing guys leave rehab and they'd be back in like a week or two. And I was like, huh, what's happening? It was because like this model, the system, it's great. Warriors Heart is incredible. Like you can train service dogs there. There's so much stuff you can do, but you can't, that model is taking somebody, giving them that camaraderie, that locker room that they miss from the military. And then the day you leave, you're going back home and that's all gone,
Yeah.
and then we relapse so quick. So I loved Warriors Heart, had a great time, but I relapsed within 3 or 4 days coming back. Didn't fix the core issue. That was the moment, my friend, that I said, I can't be fixed. I'm too messed up. If 2 rehabs can't fix me, there's no way I can be fixed. So I turn heavy and this is when everybody started really picking up on what I was dishing out, my drug addiction. I went hard at that point. I didn't really care. I was at the point now where I didn't care who knew I was doing it really. Um, so I got heavy into heroin, still on tons of Adderall, cocaine. I'd get whatever I could get my hands on, I would do it. Um, still drinking a lot. And then I get introduced to fentanyl in 2022. And again, I'm in love with this. I'm like, this is stronger. I can do less of it, with a longer effect. It's the same story I'm telling myself. So I get into fentanyl, man. And what I started learning about fentanyl is every time you get it, you never knew the strength of what it was going to be. And fast forward to 2022, man, I'd been off everything for like 3 weeks. Because when I'd get off stuff, which I did a lot, I'd get on Suboxone, it's just another opiate. It's a replacement. So the same companies that made Oxycontin came out with Suboxone, it's a lifelong opiate that you take. It's insane. So that was the one way you could get off opiates without withdrawals. So I would get where was I going with that? I would get Suboxone, and I was going somewhere with that. But yeah, so I'm struggling. I get back home. I don't know what to do. I'm telling myself, I know I can't be fixed now if these things can't fix me. So I said I go in hard into my addiction, got into fentanyl, and then late 2022, that's what I was saying. I'd been off 3 weeks, sober for 3 weeks, or I say sober. I was on Suboxone, and I don't know what came over me, but I wanted to go get something, so I went and got something. I went and got some fentanyl, and I'm driving down Highway 360 in Arlington, Texas, and I snort about a third of what I'd normally do. I overdose driving down the highway, bro, and I'm lucky to be alive. I didn't hurt anybody, no other vehicles. I totaled my vehicle, slammed into a little barrier on the highway, like pushed the engine block in, missed me. The firefighters had to break me out of the vehicle. They had to Narcan me. So I come back to life. I get a DWI, go to jail. Well, I was really disappointed in myself then, like really sad, really embarrassed, really embarrassed. I leave the jail the next morning. I get an Uber and I immediately go get some Adderall. So obviously that God's message right there didn't wake me up. And 3 months later, I take 3 Oxycontin pills and I swallow them. Mind you, I used to snort them. This was where God really put his foot down. I'm driving and I take 3 of them, swallow them. Within 30 minutes, I fall asleep driving, which has never happened to me from like medication like that. And I slam into a big street light on a tollway in Fort Worth, a big street light, slam into it, spins my vehicle around, totals my vehicle again. 3 months later, I talk my way out of the cops and everybody say, oh, it was something in the road. My wife comes and gets me. And then I lose my job the next day. And then the following day, my wife and I lost my job. My wife and kids leave and go to my in-laws permanently. Like they're out of here. So I'm stuck in my house by myself. And all I could think about, I had suicidal ideations a lot of times in my life, like throughout periods. But this is when it got real, where I was like, I'm done. I'm sitting in my living room. I have no job. I have no money. I have no vehicle. My family's gone and I'm done. I'm checking out. April 29th, uh, 2023. So March 2nd, that was when the accident happened. That was my sober date, by the way. After that accident, the second one, I was stuck at home. I was sober. I wasn't choosing. I wanted to be sober, yes, but I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't have money. I didn't have a vehicle. I had nothing. So I was white knuckling it. It was April 29th. I wrote my suicide notes, had it all written out in tears in my kitchen. Just, oh, dude. The next morning, I was going to hang myself in my pull-up bar. And that night, I heard Joe Rogan. He had a podcast with Dakota Meyer, and they're talking about Ibogaine. I wouldn't really listen to podcasts at that time, but I heard him say Ibogaine, and my ears perked up. And I was like, what is that? I never heard of it. And they start talking about it. And then I listened to that 4 or 5 times in a row, crying my eyes out. I fall to my knees in my living room. I was like, this is going to save my life. I know it. Mind you, I was killing myself the next day. It was committed. And I heard that, man, and I was like, this is gonna help me. The next day I got up and it was the first time I wasn't overly depressed. I felt like I was lighter, and it was because I had hope for the first time, man. So I start getting in, working on getting to Ibogaine, and it was August of 2023. So I was about 5 months sober, miserable sober, not a happy man. I go to Mexico through the mission within and sit with Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. So here's a guy that did 10 weeks in rehab, spent God knows what on that financially. Didn't work at all. I go to Mexico for 5 days and I feel like I'm on a whole nother level now, and I start realizing it like, oh, this is real. This is real. And the medicines allowed me to see the damage I'd done to my family. Like Ibogaine allowed me to see it, walked me through a 10-year period of my addiction, my kids chasing me down the street, begging me not to leave, my wife on her knees just crying and saying, I need you so bad right now. Please show up for us. All that stuff. It allowed me to see all of this in like a movie reel. But then at the end, it was like, I didn't feel what I felt. This medicine allowed me to feel what the three of them felt throughout that. I have never felt emotions like I felt that moment. I cried like I've never cried. I will never probably cry again. I purged in the bucket. It was like, I got rid of that shit. The next morning, I woke up, everybody else has a gray day. It was a new life. I was alive. I felt great. I was like, this is what I've been needing to see right here. I get up back from Ibogaine, man. 3 months later, I have my first financial blow up and stress in the house. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Immediately, my mind goes to numb it. So I thought about it. And then I was like, hold on, what is that? That would require me getting money out of the ATM. I got to lie to my wife, Ashley. I go get it. Okay, I pick it up, which is always my favorite part. It was the most exciting part. For some reason, it's weird. But I'd get the drugs. Okay, now I'm going to take the drugs. I'm going to get high. I'm going to come home, and then an hour later, whatever, I'm going to need more. Okay, then I'm going to run out of it a few hours later. Then what? And I was like, F that. In my kitchen, I was like, F that. And I was like, oh, like it was like a moment of like, oh my gosh, this is every addict's dream right here, is to see pain with their substance instead of pleasure. And like when I think of drugs and alcohol, all I see is my family, like the destruction, the pain. So there's no pleasure in that crap. What a gift to mankind, man. You know what I mean? Like this shift, and it's not going to do the same for everybody else. I get that, but it gave me a window and I took it, man. And I was happy to be sober for the first time. And I actually wanted to feel like, I wanted to know what it was like to feel. Cause I've realized like since I was 12, since my dad died, I would numb it. I knew how to numb, and I'd always numb. And every time I'd get sober, I'd be very emotional, just for no reason. But it was like, this was the first time where I was alive and I knew it, and I'll tell the people watching this, like the day after I began, the morning after, I got up and I walked in the bathroom. I walk in the bathroom and I catch myself out of the corner of my eye in the mirror, and I look over and I turn towards the mirror and I start walking towards it real slow. And I get up close to myself and I go, oh my God, I'm fucking back. I was like, I'm back. And I started crying. It was just like, that was a moment where that's the reality and the truth. And it's like, I left Mexico on a whole nother level, to where now I finally was seeing the damage and the pain and the reason I was using so much drugs and alcohol, what I was trying to numb, which it was the lack of parental guidance growing up. There were so many other things, but I got to see all that and I understood it. And then I was able to reframe that and be like, I'm putting my kids through something worse than that. How could you do that? And it's like, God, these medicines like allowed me to really see my true colors and understand myself. So I leave Mexico, I come back, I'm back home or whatever. I start looking for a job. I don't have a vehicle still. I start looking for a job, really struggle to find one, get back into construction minorly and do some little stuff, but I'm still unfulfilled. I'm actually, you couldn't force me to use drugs at this point, but I wasn't happy. There was something off because I was lonely. I missed my family, and all these things. So I, got put on a bunch of weight. I ate a lot, and just kind of was depressed. But then it was December of 2024, man. My friend Adamar reached out to me and said, hey, how are you? And I was like, buddy, I'm great, man. I'm sober. I'm happy to be sober. And he goes, I got something for you. He's like, I met a girl in LA last night at the Heroic Hearts gala. and they're looking for a Texas veteran that struggled with opiates. And I was like, well, I'm your guy. And the next day I have like an hour and a half conversation with Ann Claire Stapleton, former CNN reporter. And she says, okay, we're going to do a video. We're going to send a camera crew to your house. I was like, a video? I was like, who's in the video? And she's like, it's Marcus Luttrell, Governor Perry, and you. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, okay, that's awesome. Let's do it. And so that video happens, and I was so nervous. And then a few months after that, um, it was actually like 2 weeks after I did that video that the Joe Rogan podcast came out with Brian Hubbard and Governor Perry, about Ibogaine. And so once I did that interview, I felt pretty cool. I felt like I'm going to do something with this. I want to help people because I wanted to lead people to these medicines. I know so many people struggling. And then in March, man, I started getting involved in the Texas Ibogaine initiative, to where I was one of the few veterans. I don't know, I think there's 8 of us that testified at the Capitol in support of the Texas Ibogaine bill. And Texas passed a $50 million Ibogaine bill, which is the largest psychedelic bill ever passed in the world. And it was done in the most conservative state in the country. And we did it in Texas. And it's like, as goes Texas, so goes the nation. Like, I take pride in that. Like, not only do Rangers lead the way, but I'm living in a state that's like leading the way and doing good things. So I got to be a big part of that. I got to meet some incredible people, grew very close to the Luttrells, Marcus and Melanie, incredible people. Marcus Capone, got to know a bunch of these groups of people and started getting more and more involved, but I started to see the help it was providing. I started having people reach out to me and say, hey man, I'm seeing this stuff. I saw your video. I heard the Joe Rogan thing. Like, this is interesting. Tell me more about it. And that's what I started to see, Brandon, is I started to see the broken man talking to me and me just telling him about this. And you could see the hope, and you could see the shift. Like, he'd be devastated telling you like why he's broken, why he's so sad. But then you tell him about this. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the conversation, you can see light in his eyes and he's smiling. That's the shift right there. And it's like, once you plant, because again, I'm not selling anything. It's like planting a seed of, this worked for me. And this is helping. And here's what I tried before, like I tried all these things and nothing would work. This worked for me, and it's working for a lot of other people. And so I became very ingrained in it. And I started to talk to a lot of veterans, started having a lot of addicts reach out to me. And it was really neat, man. I started to really get deep into this, and I was passionate about it, because like I said, when you see a broken man go overseas or go to Mexico and then come back and he's a different human being, it's like, wow, like this, more people need this. So I started becoming really ingrained in it and started to coordinate with a lot of people and send a lot of people, and then I started to realize I can't just send anybody. These medicines are sacred to me. They saved my life. And for me to send Joe Blow over there to go waste a spot with these medicines because maybe he has the money or something, then he comes back and drinks the first day. Like, no. And that happened. That happened to 2 people that I sent, and it pissed me off really bad. But then I was like, no, there's no reason to be mad. Reframe this. Like, this is going to happen. So learn from it.
What do you think the reason is? Because I agree with you. The medicine definitely helps, but it's not a fix all. It's not a cure all. You still have to do the work. You still have to come home and fight all the demons that the medicine revealed to you, and you have to make amends. And what's the difference between a guy that goes over there, comes back and thrives from it, and a guy that goes over there and comes back and just goes right back into the same lifestyle?
The guy that sees himself living as his best self is the guy that thrives. You know what I'm saying? Like, the guy who, before he goes to Mexico, he's seeing the outcome. So he maybe knows some people, has seen some other people. He's already picturing himself living his best life and being his best self, and finally being right and being right mentally and everything. He's picturing that and seeing it. The other guy's just going, like you said, a silver bullet. Like, they're going to just fix something. Like, they're just going to do this and it's going to fix them. It's going to help them. And before I went to Mexico, the day before I left, a guy told me it's 10% medicine, 90% you. And I was like, what? I was like, are you serious? I was pissed, but that was the greatest advice anybody gave me, because it's like, the 10%, it gives you a window, but it's not going to change your life. It's like, it's giving you a window to you change your life, and so the individuals that know that going over and that have a plan coming back, and also anybody that's going through me, man, like, they understand my seriousness. And if you let me down, like, it won't be good. Like, I will slash retire. I'm kidding. But, but I mean, like, I take pride in this. And like, these medicines are saving lives. So if you're going to waste it, piss off, like, whatever. Go on about your business. Don't ever come back to me. Like, this is for people that really truly want to heal. And I started to also learn, Brandon, that I still send guys that are single. Don't take it like I don't. But I look at the whole support system, you know? And I see guys, first off, that want to be their best, like want to thrive, want to kick butt in life. Um, but I look at the guy with a good support, a good spouse, and kids, because it gives you a lot more reason, and to come back to and to support you as you come back. So yeah, man, I'm changing the whole way I look at who I'm sending, and it's working. Since those two I had, knock on wood, I haven't had one that has, and there's been over 50, you know, which is very powerful. And people are just, and I think it has a lot to do with the preparation, like, and I'm saying I'm preparing them. I'm saying this is what this is. You have two choices. You can let this change your life, or you can go back to your old ways. It's up to you. But people are doing it, and they're real and they're getting it. And it's like, it's so beautiful, man, because you're seeing families be restored. I'm hearing from wives or spouses. I'm hearing from kids talking about, like, I got my dad back. Oh, I didn't tell you that. When I got back from Mexico, did I tell you this? When I walked in my kitchen? No. I walked in my kitchen 3 days after being back from Mexico, and I see my daughter. She's 13 at the time, Alyssa. And she's looking at me from, like, across the kitchen. Like, she's just staring at me. And I look at her, I go, "Hi, sweet girl." And she's just looking at me, like, down to my soul. And then she walks up to me, gets kind of close, and is just looking and starts crying. She's not an emotional kid. And she goes, "I've never met this dad before." And I was like, "Oh," because that's the truth. Like, she hadn't. All she saw was the struggling dad, the suffering dad who was broken. And yeah, that's all she saw. And so it was just, that's powerful. That's powerful. And that's how powerful the medicine is. But yeah, so now sending people. And then a few months ago, after I kicked butt at the Capitol, I really did, because my story, I'm authentic. I have no shame. Like, I removed all the shame. Like, I'm now a strong believer. Me and God have never been closer. I've forgiven myself. I've forgiven everybody in my life. And I just want to help people, and, so yeah, I joined Texans for Greater Mental Health, as their engagement coordinator, I guess, like 6, 7 months ago. And in that time, I've been to Alaska, been to Mexico, California, Washington, DC, New York City, been all over the place speaking. And when I left DC after meeting with politicians, I was like, this is what I'm really supposed to be doing. Because I saw the way I worked in these rooms, and I saw the reactions I was getting from these people. Because as you can see, I'm passionate about this. That's not something that's not a mystery. But yeah, and then I started seeing that. And then when I got back from DC, I reached out to Brian Hubbard, 'cause I've known Brian Hubbard now for, I guess, over a year, and Governor Perry, and was like, um, I wanted to go work with them. Like, I wanted to join AFI. And so I was the first ambassador brought on for AFI, 6, 7 months ago. I think we have like 30 or 40 now. But then I was the first ambassador that I actually got hired on for a paid gig. And the reason is because they know my passion for this. And I began Save My Life. 5-MeO was what really saved my life. But it was, yes, it saved my life. But what am I trying to say here? I just drew a blank, dude. Um,
It happens.
yeah, it happens. But yeah, so you have to cut that part out. Uh, but yeah, where was I going with that? Oh, they changed my life. But oh, doing this work is what, like, the medicines changed my life, and it gave me a new approach, a new path in the world. Doing this work and seeing other people and seeing the power these things are having, and seeing the power and the help that I'm able to provide, is the greatest high I've ever felt in my life.
Gives you a purpose again.
Purpose, man. And for the first time, like, I was always searching and never knew how to find purpose or whatever. And it's like, it took me going to the bottom, near death, and being right there at the edge of it. And then God was like, no, 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 Chase, no, come back. Like, we're not letting you go yet. And I realized that, I realized what these medicines did for me. And then I get pissed off because I realized this comes from the earth, and it did for me this, like, and it's doing what it is for others, but yet we have to leave the country to go do it. So we fight and bleed for this country, but we have to leave that country to go heal. How un-American is that?
But they'll mail you.
But they'll mail me, yes, yes.
Yes.
But they'll mail me Oxycontin. Man, I've got so many buddies, they tried it with me. They were sending me antidepressants for a while. I started taking them once, but I never kept taking them. That is one of the hardest things I'm seeing for people to get off of,
Yeah.
SSRIs. And it's like, how sad is that? They thought it was helping them. And everybody I've had, actually 8 that I know of out of the 9 that killed themselves were all on SSRIs. All of them. It's like, because it's a lot of them weren't depressed initially. They just had an issue, and then you give them antidepressants and it can have the adverse effect. So, but yeah, man, and I take pride in what I do now. I like I like having people reach out to me and say you're inspiring me, like your story's inspirational to me. And I'm now getting to this. And Brandon, I've taken probably 60 Uber rides in the past year, at least. And every Uber driver, I asked them, have you ever heard of Ibogaine? Because again, I'm not selling anything. I'm just planting a seed. I've had 3 other drivers, I think 3 or 4, that said, yes, I have, but they knew very minimal about it. But I've had 3 or 4 Uber drivers months later reach out to me, find me, and say, "Thank you so much for telling me about that. It helped my aunt," or whatever it was. And it's like, that's what I'm doing now, is advocating, sharing this message, because people don't know about this. And on LinkedIn, I posted a video a while back, of a 2009 episode of Law& and Order SVU. 2009. They have a scene in it, uh, and there's a heroin addict in the bed, and the psychiatrist, the 2 detectives are in there, and he's like, "Well, there is one other thing we can do other than methadone, and it's Ibogaine." And they go in, they talk about it, and then the officers are like, "You're telling me there's a medicine out there that can heal heroin addiction in 24 hours, but it's illegal?" And then they go into, "Well, yes, because there's no money in it for big pharma." That was 2009. I learned about this in 2023, about Ibogaine. You know what I mean? Like, how frustrating is that to know all the people that suffered and died and whatever throughout that whole time? They've just hid this from us. They've kept it from us, and they've done a damn good job of doing it. But it
So
saved my
what
life.
what are all the positives of Ibogaine that it helps? Like, I went down for and did it for my PTSD and TBI, and that just helped a lot of my mental issues. But I know there's a lot more benefits to it, and you're the subject
It's
matter expert, so I will let you speak to that.
Yeah, and you call me an expert. Like, this is where I usually let like the scientists and doctors go into it. But I have learned enough that this medicine is resetting the opiate receptors, like, completely. It is. And what else it's doing, that something people just don't understand, and I didn't understand this either. The white matter in the brain is where all the thoughts and everything go through. This medicine, within 48 hours, Ibogaine, is thickening the white matter in the brain. Think about that. Like, there's never been anything that has healed the brain on this planet. Here we are in 2026. We have a natural plant that is actually healing the brain. To me, greatest discovery in mankind, but one of them, because it's going to save so many lives. But on the technical side, like, that's what it's doing. And we're seeing people. I mean, you've probably heard this: Parkinson's, MS. I've got a couple in McKinney, Texas, that I've known now for 8 months. Joe's 42 years old, has had Parkinson's for 6 years. They have 3 daughters, beautiful daughters, and they hit a wall with pharmaceuticals and decided they were going to go on all natural. So they started microdosing psilocybin, and that was working great. But then I got them to Ibogaine. I got him to Ibogaine. 3 weeks after it, he's like running up a trail with his daughters, which it didn't fix it. He still has to keep doing it, because healing's a journey. But that's phenomenal. And then I know another woman with MS who was at the end, like, Ibogaine wasn't going to fix her, but she finally lost her voice. And she said she wanted to do Ibogaine to see if it would give her a voice box back. It did. It's the neurological, there's something this medicine's doing. And when I hear the doctors and scientists talk about it, they say it is the most intelligent molecule they have ever found, they've ever discovered. And we still don't know, we hardly know anything about it. And they're saying that when this medicine is in the brain and it comes to a Y in the brain, whatever your veins or neurons, whatever you call them, the medicine always goes to the more damaged side. How crazy is that? Like, this medicine, it's intelligent, it's working, and it's fascinating to me, man. So the things it's doing are extraordinary. I mean, heck, another example, Governor Perry, when this happened, I was so happy because I knew he had gone and sat with Ibogaine, but I asked him back in January, I was like, when are you going to share your story? This is going to change everything. And he's like, I'll do it when the time's right. And I can't remember when it was, like 4 or 5 months ago, but a New York Times article came out and he shared it. And because that was my hardest people was the older people. Once that came out that Governor Perry did it at 73 years old, didn't have addiction, didn't have anything. He had some small atrophies in his brain, like some black spots and stuff like that. But he went and did it. And he came back, and 6 months after that, all the black spots are gone. And they say he has the brain of a 40-year-old, you know? And it's like, that's pretty that's convincing to me. But I've seen more people buy into this since Governor Perry came out than anything, because people are still skeptical of it. And also, I heard it from other people, like um, you're gonna get off drugs by go taking another drug. Like, sure you are, buddy. And it's like I hate when people call it drugs. To be honest, like ibogaine and like it's like these aren't drugs. These are medicines. Like they put them here for God put them here for a reason. So, but yeah, go ahead.
I got a question about faith.
Yeah,
So, I've heard a lot of stories of people sharing their ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT experiences and saying they encounter God. Um, I also had a very religious experience that actually drove me deeper into my faith. I hear a lot of other people sharing similar stories. Where do you think that connection comes from? Because my biggest fear about pushing people to a drug is I think a lot of people start to worship the drug.
yeah.
Um, but I know that, God provides everything. And so just my own personal soapbox perspective is I think God provides us everything that we need to heal, not all these chemicals that we induce into our bodies and everything. And He's providing for us, He's helping us. And so I'm wondering what your perspective of someone that's deep into this, where do you see the faith and the medicine tying together?
Well, knowing about the Bawiti tribe in Africa, um, where the aboga shrub grows, that's God. Okay, I'll say this other way. God put this here for a reason. He put this here for one reason, and he put it here to help us heal the damage we do to ourselves. The Bawiti tribe have known this for centuries, and they've been using it for this. But the Western world, we were all about money and greed. We couldn't make money on that, so we don't worry about healing people because we don't make money if you're healed. We make money when you're sick. You know. So for me, I've now had a multiple atheists that have gone with the medicine and come back and have had a new discovery. I really genuinely believe that God put this here for us to feel him within us like we've never felt him before. I don't know if that makes sense. Because I felt like it was him working within me when I sat with that medicine. I didn't want it again, after and I still don't but it gave me this godly self or let me feel my godly self and review my life being ungodly, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it showed me all those things, but it helped me understand. Yeah, and I don't even know where I'm going with this because that's a hard question. But the faith side of it for me, man, I was already a believer. I've tried to be saved multiple times in my life, like going to Young Life and all these things. Never worked, never really enjoyed church, never got into it. That Mexico trip changed everything for me. I don't even call myself religious. I just say me and God are best friends. I've never been closer to God with anybody in my entire life, and it's like it's a connection. I'm so grateful for everything now. And it's like the reason these medicines allowed me to open up my heart and let him in, I guess, fully, and actually see that he's here to help and he genuinely wants to help us and he wants to help me. Let him in, and too many people are like, no, 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 no. But it's like these medicines allowed my heart to open and be like, I get it. Like my 5-MeO experience, man, straight to heaven. Went to heaven. I saw everybody that I've lost. My dad, my dog, all these people I love so much. They were all happier than I'd ever seen them in life. And it was like, oh, that weight just lifted. Like, oh, they're all good. Like, it's okay. And then I have a moment where the divine comes to me and I'm looking at a city. Makes me look at a city and there's like arms in the air. And then you don't have they don't have faces. You can't see, which is I don't know why I throw that detail out, but it's weird. But then I turn back and I'm in front of God, spirit, whatever he is, digital, whatever, it's hard to explain. And I knew right then that those people need God. They need him. And God was telling me, you're the conduit to get them to me. Go out there and be one. I came out of a 5-MeO, dude. I stood up. I'm in tears, full body sweat, flexing every muscle in my body. I look out over the ocean out this window and I said, let's effing go. And I screamed it louder than I've probably ever spoken in my life. And it was so powerful. That moment right there shifted everything. Shifted everything. I now knew that I'm with you, Lord. I'm with you, and let's roll, baby. Like, I'm ready to do your service. I'm ready to do your work. Show me what you need me to do. And I had a little bit of a rut for a few months where I was depressed and lonely, but I was stuck. And I didn't lean on him, you know? I didn't lean on him at all during that, actually. I just thought about that. Yeah. But then I broke out of that. And yeah, man, I've never prayed more in my life. I've never been happier or more fulfilled, because I'm doing God's work. This is what I'm here for. Like, I'm here to help build this, to help build the future of healthcare, of something that I've struggled with my entire life, that has killed off so many people I know, but we have an answer. We have something that's helping, and if it's an 88% success rate or 84, whatever it is, after one use of Ibogaine for a heroin addict, seriously? I think of all the people we're dying daily. So we're on the brink of something here, and you and me, I'm 42 years old. All the people before me, my dad, alcoholic, all these people that have died before me, my family members, like, all of us have this. Think of how many, the thousands, millions that have died. It took you and I's generation. We're making a shift. We're saying no more of this crap. We're not taking what you tell us to take just because you want us to take it. Like, we want to heal, and we are going after it, and we don't care what anybody says. And look what's happening. Dude, Texas passed the bill. Mississippi signed their bill. We got, I told you earlier, Alabama, Missouri, Florida, Vermont, Idaho, Ohio, like, all these states are jumping on board. This is change. This is real change, where people are waking up and saying, I want to live. I want to feel. And so many households, they aren't feeling. The parents are on some medication that is numbing them in some form or fashion. The kids are being affected.
Yeah.
The kids don't have their parent. It's like, so these medicines, and again, it doesn't have to be just Ibogaine, like psilocybin, MDMA. There's so many different natural plant medicines that God put here for this reason, for us to work through the stuff that we go through. And it makes me, I'll tell you this, man, like, the one guy following me, I got Instagram like 7 months ago. They got me to do it for Americans for Ibogaine. And I have a friend from elementary school that started following me, and he started being very supportive. Everything I was doing was so supportive of it. January 6th, he took his own life. I I think about that. I had no idea, and I had no clue. And it was like, but you don't know the people that are struggling, But the reality is, right now where we're at is, it's not as much people being scared. Maybe it is people being scared of the medicine, but it's the price tag, you know, to,
Yeah.
like, for it to be $7,000. But then I'd look at that as, I spent what, 150 grand on rehab, 2 rehabs for 10 weeks. And it's like, I'd pay 50 grand, to go do it if I knew, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I knew it would give me these results. So, but yeah, man, it's, we're in a powerful, powerful time where we are taking our country back. I think this is one of the greatest times to be alive right now. I believe that. And I know there's a lot of crap going on around our country, but there is real awakening going on. People are really waking up. People are finding God. People that I never thought would ever. I mean, there's people that are, yes, connecting with God that said they never would. There's an awakening happening. People are coming to their senses. People are wanting to do more for others than they are for themselves. People are wanting to be good husbands, good wives, Like, I feel like there's a shift happening because we're looking at ourselves now being like, "Oh my gosh, what have we been doing?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm grateful as heck to be a part of all this movement. And there's, after In Waves on More, the movie on Netflix came out. I think Ambio had like 40 or 50 applications a day, Ambio Clinic in Mexico. And after that movie, I think it's like over 200 applications a day now or something
Wow.
like that. But their waiting list, like, I had a guy the other day call me and say, "I just signed up and it's March of 27 before you can go." That's it. Think about the need right now. The need, the people that are trying to get to this medicine that are not able to get to it because of our stupid government.
I went through Ambio and I submitted my application on a Sunday at like 1. That same day at 4 PM, I was on a phone call. A week later, I was in Mexico.
When was that? What year?
24, December 24.
I'm going to be telling that a lot. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really
So,
wild.
and it freaked me out. I was like, "I'm scared. I grew up Southern Baptist. We don't do anything like this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know." My dad's a pastor. I called him. I told no one I was going. I said, "Dad, I don't know how this meshes with my faith." And he, as a pastor, he's like, "Son, I just want you to get healthy
Oh.
and you do what you need." And I just broke down. I was in a hotel room. I was doing a contract for a couple days before I left, and I just broke down crying. And yeah, showed up to Mexico, and my gray day, and the gray day is the day after the medicine in between the ibogaine and the 5-MeO, where most guys are just kind of like laying around. I had a
Going
guy,
up.
he
Yeah.
laid in bed like for 12 hours after medicine. As soon as they took the, uh, what is it, the EKG machine
Mhm.
off and took it off, and as soon as I drank my smoothie and I could actually walk, I was outside barefoot on the ground. The sun was never brighter. The sky wasn't, has never been bluer. Guys were like,
Yeah.
dude, the whites in your eyes, like you look like a different person. And yeah, my gray day was not a gray day.
That was mine.
I was on
That's
cloud
beautiful.
50. The 5-MeO rocked my world, and settled me back down a little bit. But but yeah. Um, if you had one message to share with a veteran that is struggling, having a hard time getting out of his head, doesn't want to ask for help, thinks he's all alone in the world. Um, and I say that because those are the thoughts that I've had. Uh, no one knows what I'm going through. No one understands. I'm all alone. No one cares. What's your message?
My message is think back to that individual that joined the military and after you graduated basic training, the majority of people, you feel pretty strong at that moment, right? That's still inside of you. That man is still there. He's not dead. We need you right now more than ever because we are losing so many people, military, civilians, firefighters, just so many people, so many leaders in this world because they don't know about this. It's going to take us as veterans to heal ourselves so we can then go out and do what we're supposed to do, which is serve and help other people. That's why we're here. And so if you are struggling, there is no shame whatsoever in reaching out. And hell, I'm one. Like reach out to me. I'm all open. It's just there's no shame in it. There's when you have thousands upon thousands of special forces, guys, some of the hardest human beings on the planet, all seeking these medicines out for healing. That should tell you something, you know? There's no shame in this, Reach out and more start looking around and you'll start seeing there are more veterans all over the place that are actually starting to reach out and come up, So find that. Yes, so that's what I'd say. And also do some research. There's healing available, and it doesn't have to be just ibogaine. There's psilocybin, there's MDMA, there's a lot of these non-doctor things that we have to non-prescription things that are helping and they're healing modalities that are having incredible effects on people. And that find the hope, find what you need, find what you want to fix, and then how are you going to fix it? And these medicines can help you get there.
100%. Chase, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your story. I can hear your passion and your excitement just pouring out of you. Um, I appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure being with you, dude. And we'll talk soon, man.
Absolutely.
All
Thanks.
right, buddy. See ya.
Bye.